What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another YouTube video, and today we're taking a look at another film review. And I know I'm late. I'm always late. It's my thing. I'm sorry. Bird Box was a huge thing in 2020. I am very late to the party. I'm like 5 years late. I know. I'm sorry. Get used to it. That's my whole shtick. That's what I do. I'm late to everything. I'm never on time. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll try and be on time to more things. However, I did not want to watch this when this first came out. I'm going to be completely honest. It looked like it was quite creepy. It looked like it was quite scary. So I did not want to watch it when it first came out. I do apologize about that, but I am planning on fixing that because I've recently watched it. I actually watched it, and I am pretty okay with how it went. Not gonna lie. It was kinda odd. Not the stereotypical movie that I would have particularly liked, but without any further delay, let's take a look at what Google has to say with Bird Box. It is it's a 2018 movie. I'm even later than what I thought. Holy shit. Holy shit. I thought this was like 2020 Squid Game lockdown type thing, not a 2018 thing. Okay. Anyway, it is a 64% Rotten Tomatoes, a 6.6 out of 10 IMDb, and you can only watch it on Netflix. Years after an unseen entity wreaks havoc on humankind by compelling people to commit suicide, Mallory and her 2 children, blindfold, undertake a dangerous journey in a bid to survive. So how the story actually goes is it keeps jumping backwards and forwards through time, showing you how it all started and what's happening now. So I'm going to take a look at the story in chronological order and how it goes, and it opens up with our main character Mallory doing a little bit of painting, doing a little bit of Renaissance art, drawing a feast type meal, and she goes for a pregnancy scan, and that she has a baby boy. She's worried that she's not going to love it when it comes out, and boom, the world is under attack by an eldritch being, which makes people commit suicide. Her sister kills herself. She gets brought into a house. Someone tries to help her, but it gets into a burning car instead and explodes. She gets into the house, and there is quite a few people in this house. There's a police officer, there is a drug dealer, there is an old guy, there is a athlete, there is a, do you believe, a computer salesman, and there's an old lady, another pregnant lady, and there's probably more which I can't remember. There's a shop assistant as well, who's writing a novel. They then stay in the house. They then decide that they need to go out for food, so they paint the car black because they work out that they can't look at this thing, and someone stays back to look at the security cameras. It can kill you through security cameras, and he dies. So they start to drop like flies because when they get to the superstore, the store, someone sacrifices himself to save the group, and they all go back. Then the cop and the drug dealer steal the car and drive away, and we don't actually hear from them again. And then we have someone banging on the door, asking to come in, begging to come in, and he gets let in by the pregnant lady, and then he locks the old guy in the garage and opens the door. The 2 girls give birth to a boy and a girl respectively. He then opens the blinds, killing one of the pregnant ladies, forcefully opening the old lady's eyes, and then also, what else did he do? He then stabs the old guy who tries to shoot him, and the reason that he isn't affected by the creature is because he's psychopathic. If you're crazy, I was crazy once, so let me in a rubber room with rats, and rats with me crazy, I was crazy once, so let me in a rubber room with rats, and rats with me crazy. It doesn't actually affect you, and it makes you a disciple, so it makes you go around and makes you open other people's eyes so that they can see it, and that's what they encounter in the store, to have someone sacrifice himself to save the rest of the group. There is now only 2 alive, and they fast forward 5 years. They're looking after the children. They're called boy and girl respectively, and they're going around finding food, staying alive, and just protecting each other. And you know, that goes well for quite a while, and
you know, they go, they keep going. The boy then, not the child, the guy, then, like, fights off a load of crazy people to give chance for the other three to escape, get to the boat, and head downstream because someone on the radio said, hey, there's a safe house. They go downstream, they fall into the river quite a few times, get back in the boat, manage to get through the rapids without looking, fight through the monster as they're going through the forest, get to the blind school, and it's a safe haven, and that's where the movie ends. And it's called Bird Box because birds acknowledge the monster. The birds start going crazy, acting up when they hear the monster, so they keep birds in a box so they know when the monster's nearby. Would you look at that poetic storytelling? I'm going to be honest, the way they build up fear and build up tension by blocking out one of your main senses is really good. Very similar to how The Quiet Place is, where it blocks out, like, your voice. You're not allowed to communicate, you have to be very quiet, you have to move slowly, you have to move carefully. Very similar here. Because you're blind, you have to move slowly, you have to move carefully, because you don't know what's out there, you don't know what's in front of you, and there is multiple threats. We never actually get to see the monster. It is represented with faint whispering of family members. It's sort of represented by the trees blowing in the wind, and represented by floating leaves to show that something is there and something is coming, but we're not allowed to see it because it is something beyond human comprehension, and if we did see it, we'd end up dying. So it blocks it from the view from the entirety of the film, and some people would be upset by that because we never do find out what the monster is, but to some other people it's really good because your imagination is much scarier than anything somebody can make on screen. Your imagination and what you think the monster looks like, what you think the monster is, that unknown is much scarier than what it actually is. So because you don't know, your mind is racing, your mind is thinking of all the different possibilities, all the different things that it could be, but you just don't know what. And that is scary, that's unsettling. You don't know how to handle that, you don't know how to deal with that because it's an unknown. And fear of the unknown has always been a very big thing within humanity and within humans. So with it being placed on here is really cool and really interesting and really exciting and gets you feeling on edge for most of the movie when they're trying to sort of go outside of the house or make any travels or go anywhere throughout their, I don't know, to the water, to the supermarket, to wherever they're going. And it is a pretty big threat, which is quite a scary one and a very hard one to deal with. Going over the rapids blindfolded, I think, is a fucking wild choice. It's definitely a choice, but it's a wild fucking choice. Like, who the fuck is going over rapids? Because they fucking want to, right? That is wild. That is fucking wild to me. Going over the rapids because of it being, like, surely, I know there is, like, situations, and I've never been in a situation like this, so I wouldn't know personally how I would act and how I'd feel in this situation, but surely you wouldn't. Surely you wouldn't risk it all to get over these rapids, and especially you wouldn't do it blind. Surely. But that's how it builds tension with these very high-stakes situations. It's how it builds suspense and gets you on the edge of your seat. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really play on my phone when watching this. I was pretty much glued to the TV. I can understand why this was a pretty big pop culture thing back in 2018 when it first came out. I'm still very upset that it came out in 2018 and I'm that late to it. I genuinely thought it only came out in 2020. So I'm not just 5 years. I'm like, what, 8 years late to this? Holy fucking shit. I am really late to the party, and I am very, very sorry. But, yeah. I'm very shocked that this didn't get a number of spin-offs. It got one, which was Bird Box Barcelona, and that was the only spin-off, that was the only sort of second iteration of this that this got, and I don't think a lot of people watched it, so they sort of gave up on the hype train of this. Whereas for Squid Game, they have a whole fucking timeline. They have a whole fucking spin-off series waiting, and same with Stranger Things. Whenever that's finished, we have a whole load of more spin-offs to go, and I'm gonna be honest, not everything needs to be a Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can just have one-offs, and it doesn't need to be a sort of, like, massive, like, timeline. You can just have one movie that's solid. You don't need to capitalize on every single movie that you make, because eventually it will get boring, it will get repetitive, and it will get overdone, and then it'll get oversaturated, and you'll have lost money. And I'm gonna be honest, Stranger Things is becoming like that. Like, it is a very popular show, but it is getting very boring, very repetitive, very dragged out, especially with the lack of consequences. And I took a pretty big tangent there, but I feel like this show, this movie, is a brilliant sort of example of being a one-hit, like, spectacular, because it worked once, and it was good, it was popular, and they didn't sort of oversaturate it, sort of dive deep on it, and sort of, like, milk it for everything that it's worth. This one is a really good example of just one and done. That's all you need sometimes, and it is fucking brilliant. And the whole message of her sort of actually naming the children at the end, Olivia after her mum, and Tom after their dad, or Tom after the people that she met and that they sacrificed their lives for her, you know, is really good, really meaningful, very impactful, because, you know, it shows that she's learning, shows that she's growing, and shows that she's accepting of the children, that she actually does care for them. And even though she cared for them throughout the entire movie, keeping them alive, looking after them, and sort of making sure that they didn't die, like, that is caring for them, that's loving them. Even though you might not want to show it, or you might not know it, that is still caring for these, like, for these little ones, and wanting them to be safe, wanting them to, you know, keep going and survive. Like, that is love. And overall, I think it's a really good movie, and it's a pretty decent horror, not gonna lie. There was some moments where I was pretty tense, but it didn't use any sort of very cheap jump scares, and I thought it was pretty good, so I'm gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10. So other than that, bye-bye.